Hello there. So today is the election day in Ireland, so I voted, but I'm kind of wondering why did I even bother? So we seem to be in a very, very strange situation in a lot of countries across the world where it seems to me that life is imitating art, and by that I'm talking about Aldous Huxley's Brave New World and to a lesser extent George Orwell's 1984. I've read both those books a long, long time ago and then, decide to revisit them years later. And it is quite stunning how prophetic these books were. The main difference between these sort of horrible dystopian futures is in Huxley's world, it's more a sort of seduction rather than an oppression. So everybody's sort of enjoying themselves, so they're quite happy to have no freedom whatsoever because they're kind of having a laugh. They've got Soma, and they've been trained from birth to sort of just accept the society they're in, whereas Orwellian's vision is a lot more oppressive. We're seeing elements of both these books sort of coming into modern society. A particularly nasty thing is this whole hate speech thing where, if you say things that people don't like, then you can end up being arrested. Just for things like a stupid Facebook post, you can go to jail, whereas, people like murderers and rapists are actually getting smaller sentences for actually really, really harming people than somebody who just wrote something mean on Facebook. That's just pure insanity as far as I'm concerned. And then, of course, the control of the media, which is highlighted, by Winston Smith in his Job. There's a particular passage in the book where, because of the ongoing war that's been going forever, does that ring any bells? The price of chocolate has gone up, and that's reported or to be reported in the newspapers, which are, of course, government controlled. And he edits the story to make it that instead of a chocolate ration going down, the chocolate ration has been increased from 25 grams to 30 grams. And everyone's, yay, fantastic, everyone will be cheering. But the reality is it's dropped from 40 to 30. But telling the actual truth is basically banned. And you've got that famous line about 2 plus 2 equals 5. And everyone knows that's 4. But, if you are sufficiently indoctrinated, if, the party or whoever it is that's in control, whatever force that's running things says, no, it's 5, then not only are you supposed to agree that it's 5, but they want you to really truly believe that 2 plus 2 does equal 5. So we're seeing more and more of this ideological nonsense being forced on people today, and an erosion of freedom of speech. Another really worrying aspect of the transhumanist future that's illustrated in Aldous Huxley's book Brave New World is the whole kind of, I suppose you could describe it as a sort of a gender war, really. In this future, men and women don't have children in a normal way. They're kind of bred in sort of artificial wombs. And that's another thing that's just sort of around the corner. That technology is already here. And, people can shuffle off if they're sick of their life. That's something you see in the book Make Room, actually turned into a film as Soylent Green. That's a major part of it, this whole euthanasia thing, which they're now pushing big time in the UK. It's absolutely shocking to think they're just encouraging people to, stop being a tax burden. We've got to pay for you, so you should just clear off and get yourself done in. That's just utterly sick as far as I'm concerned. But, it's another dystopian sci-fi idea that is becoming reality. And going back to what I was saying about the artificial wombs and all that stuff, and the men and women in the Brave New World version, there's, men and women still have sexual relations, but it's just purely for fun. Nobody does it to have pregnancies, and there's no such thing as families anymore. Families just don't exist. Children are raised by the collective. And you've got a similar thing in 1984, except that men and women are pretty much at odds. You've got like a hyper-feminism movement where, like, I forget the name of it now. But anyway, it's pretty unusual for men and women to have a romance in that book. Although there is this romance between Winston and Julia, which ends very, very sadly, of course. You have a similar kind of idea in the film THX, which is George Lucas's first commercial film. Quite brilliant, actually. Where there's a sort of clandestine relationship between a man and a woman there, who are like, everyone's drugged up to the eyeballs, and it's sort of a commercial, sort of Huxleyan stroke Orwellian society, which is based on a religion of consumerism, strangely enough. And that's very prophetic itself, because here we are in a society where consumerism has sort of replaced religion and God and spirituality to a large extent, quite unfortunately, because, this endless buying of crap is just making the world a worse place. It's not better. We're just being programmed, programmed to go out and buy crap to make us feel better. And what purpose does it actually serve? You feel good about it for like 5 seconds, and then you've got this junk that you kind of throw in the bin or give to the charity shop, and most of it's all ending up in landfills and polluting the earth for like thousands of years, just for this momentary bit of satisfaction. It's just so idiotic. Quite childish, really. People, you'd hope, would look beyond that, but people, to a large extent, are victims of their emotions and their impulses. And a little bit of thinking about the consequences of actions might change how people behave, but a lot of people are just instinctive, and they just don't really stop to pause and think about, do I need this? Do I really want this? Is this what I want to do? So many people seem to be led by the nose. And, going back to the problems with men and women, you seem to have these two movements which have developed. One is called MGTOW, I think that's how you say it. Men going their own way, where these men are like, oh, I'm not interested in relationships with women anymore. They can all, go fish. I'm going to enjoy myself doing other things. And then you've got the opposite movement, which seems to have originated in Korea. I think South Korea, called, is it 4B? I think it's called. And now you've got this 4B movement started in America. It seems to be linked to politics, to people who are sort of ultra-democrat and hate Trump so much that they've now decided they're not going to have sex or relationships with men as some kind of punishment for people having voted more for Trump than for Kamala Harris. So I think it's something like 5 or 6 million more voted for Trump. So there's still like, what was it, something roughly like 70 million versus 76 million. So, okay, for people who are upset, I can see that, obviously very disappointed. But what difference is like refusing to have sex going to make? What use is that? How does that change anything apart from less like upset your partner if you've got one? And how does it really benefit you in terms of like ostracizing men, so that any potential relationship you might have enjoyed will just not happen? It just seems really sad that you've got this situation where men and women are loggerheads. But to me, it seems like it's very much being engineered rather than something that's a natural process. The fact is, if men and women do not want to be together, either in a relationship or to have families, then the birth rate will continue to plummet. And if it continues plummeting, that will mean there'll be a massive and very rapid drop in the world population. Ultimately, if nobody has any children, then we'll just die out in a matter of less than 100 years. We could just be gone altogether if nobody wants to have babies. So, what are they going to do? Are they going to be forced to resort to artificial wombs and artificial insemination to make a new generation of people? I could see that governments in the future might decide to go down this route where they have to artificially sustain the population because nobody wants to be a parent, nobody wants to be in a relationship. It's all very dystopian and horrific. But a lot of these ideas that when I was a kid would have seemed far-fetched and completely ridiculous as a possible future, this stuff's actually happening. It's actually here. It's just like, my God, what is going wrong with this world? I think there's definitely something deeply wrong with humanity if we can be sort of steered in this direction. How many people are actually even aware of this stuff? How many people read these books, have paid notice to any of this stuff? I'd say the vast majority of humanity either don't know anything about Huxley, Orwell, or Harry Harrison that wrote Make Room, which Soylent Green is based on, etc. They don't know about these sort of dystopian books, which were written generally as a warning, I think, not sort of as part of some plan. They were written to warn people about what might happen, and yet nobody's taking any bloody notice. The vast majority of people just sail on sort of in this daze, and we're just being pushed in this sort of transhumanist direction. We're getting more and more into sort of like a undemocratic, basically what I'd describe as a fascist world where corporations and governments just work hand in hand, and democratic values are just being chipped away at bit by bit. And I don't think it matters whether you vote for left or right or whatever. It seems like the corporations have bought everybody in the room, so it doesn't matter who you vote for. You're going to end up with a corrupt government anyway. So I think there aren't any real solutions in politics. I think the real only way for people to overcome this is to create something different, to sort of walk away from this whole setup and make these people irrelevant. Ultimately, we all know that everything's broken, that politics is shagged, the world is in a bad state. But instead of talking about what's wrong, what we need to talk about is solutions. What is going to change it? What's going to make our world actually better? Because I think if you look to the left and you look to the right in the political spectrum, none of them have any real sort of inventive or revolutionary ideas that are going to really make a proper change. Mostly because they're just all so tied to the corporate sector of the what is it, maybe 10 to 20 companies that basically control everything in the world. Some people would say it's even less than that. And so, their hands are tied. Ultimately, if you bypass the system, if you step outside of it, if you, say, refuse to comply with the commercial dictates of these companies, what can they do? If you won't give them your money, if you refuse to spend your money with the likes of Amazon or whatever, for example, I'm not saying anyone should. That's up to you to decide who you want to give your money to. But I mean, should you decide that you're not going to play the game, what can they do? They'll just go out of business. If like 8 billion people just said, no, I'm not actually spending any money with you because I don't like what you're doing, what would they do? They're going to go out of business. They'd have no choice but to change how they operate. And the government, if nobody engaged with them and everyone refused mass non-compliance, what can they do? They can't, put a bullet inside every person on the planet. They can't arrest every person on the planet. They will be forced to change, and ultimately that's what needs to happen. Is this kind of whole transhumanist road we're going down towards a world government and total digital control of life, of human life, that is. This is not a good ending for 99.9% of humanity. So we need to find solutions to this quickly, very fucking quickly, because if we don't, then we'll end up in a world that's like a fusion of 1984, Soylent Green, and Brave New World. And I don't want to live in that kind of world. And I'd say most people actually don't either. They just can't figure out how to stop it from happening. And that's what we need to do, and urgently. Okay, that's it. A bit of a rant there. Hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave a comment and give it a thumbs up if you liked it. And of course, if you want to subscribe, I'd be very happy if you'd do so. Thanks a million. Bye.